The year was 2157, and humanity had spread across the stars like seeds on the wind. Luna Station, orbiting Earth's moon, buzzed with activity 24 hours a day. Ships came and went, carrying cargo, passengers, and dreams between the colonies. Life was good. People were happy. Nobody expected death to arrive on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez stood in her office, watching the busy station through her window. As head of Luna Station's largest hospital, she had seen everything: broken bones from construction accidents, space sickness from new travelers, even the occasional heart attack from someone eating too much synthetic chocolate. But what walked through her doors that morning was different. The first patient was a trader from the outer colonies. He looked terrible. His skin had turned an ugly gray color, like old metal left in the rain. His eyes were bloodshot and tired. He could barely stand up straight. "Doctor, I feel like I'm dying," he whispered, his voice shaky and weak. Eleanor ran every test she knew: blood work, scans, genetic analysis. Everything. The results made no sense. The man's cells were breaking down from the inside. His organs were shutting down one by one, like lights going out in a building. She had never seen anything like it. Within 6 hours, the trader was dead. By afternoon, 3 more people arrived, with the same gray skin and tired eyes. By evening, it was 12. By the next morning, Elena's hospital was full of dying people, and she had no idea how to help them. The sickness spread faster than wildfire. People called it the Gray Death because of how it turned skin that terrible color. Within 72 hours of the first symptoms, patients died. Always. No exceptions. No miracles. Just death. Elena worked day and night, trying everything she could think of. Traditional medicines did nothing. Advanced treatments failed. Even the most powerful drugs humanity had developed were useless against this mysterious enemy. It was like the sickness was designed specifically to kill humans and nothing else. News came in from other colonies. The same Gray Death was spreading everywhere humans lived. Mars colony reported thousands dead. The mining stations near Jupiter were going dark one by one. Even Earth itself was seeing cases appear in major cities. Fear grips humanity like a cold hand around the throat. Parents hugged their children tighter. Lovers held each other closer. Everyone wondered if they would be next. In the hospital, Elena watched her staff work themselves to exhaustion. They knew they couldn't save anyone, but they kept trying anyway. That's what humans do. They don't give up, even when everything seems hopeless. One of her best nurses was Lisa Park, a woman who had been working in medicine for 15 years. Lisa had originally been a scientist, studying how the human body heals itself. But after losing her own family to a disease outbreak years ago, she decided to become a nurse. She wanted to be close to patients, to hold their hands when they were scared, to be there in their final moments. Lisa worked in Ward 7, the section of the hospital that had become known as the waiting room for death. Patients came, in gray, and tired, and they left covered in white sheets. It was heartbreaking work, but someone had to do it. What Elena didn't notice at first was something strange happening in Ward 7. Patients there were lasting longer than patients in other parts of the hospital. Not much longer, maybe 6 or 8 extra hours. But in a situation where everyone died in exactly 72 hours, even a few extra hours was unusual. Elena was too busy to pay attention to small details. She was running between meetings with colonial authorities, trying to coordinate with other hospitals, and desperately searching for any kind of treatment that might work. The pressure was enormous. Every day, hundreds more people died, and the number kept growing. The colonial government was in panic mode. They set up quarantine zones, trying to stop the spread. They brought in the best doctors from across the galaxy. They offered huge rewards for anyone who could find a cure. Nothing worked. Elena found herself working 20-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but she couldn't stop. Every patient who died felt like a personal failure. Every family member who cried in her office broke her heart a little more. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her quiet work in Ward 7. She held hands with the dying. She brought them water when their throats were dry. She listened to their fears and told them they were not alone. She didn't realize it yet, but something about her presence was giving patience. Just a little more time. The Gray Death seemed unstoppable. Medical experts across human space were baffled. Some thought it was a natural plague that had evolved on some distant world. Others whispered that it might be a weapon created by hostile aliens. A few desperate souls even suggested it was punishment from some angry god. What everyone agreed on was that humanity was facing extinction if they couldn't find a cure soon. The Gray Death would spread to every human settlement in the galaxy. Billions would die. Entire colonies would become ghost towns. The story of humanity among the stars would end not with glory, but with gray skin and empty eyes. Elena stood in her office late one night, looking at the reports from across human space. The numbers were staggering. The death toll was climbing. Into the millions, every hour brought news of another colony going silent, another city emptying out, another group of humans taking their last breaths. But in Ward 7, something different was happening, something that would change everything. Lisa had noticed it too, though she didn't understand it yet. Her patients were holding on just a little longer than they should. It wasn't much, but in a world where hope was dying as fast as people, even the smallest miracle mattered. The question was, would anyone notice this tiny spark of hope before it was too late? Would humanity find its salvation in the most unexpected place? Or would the Gray Death claim every human life in the galaxy? The clock was ticking, and time was running out for everyone. Lisa Park couldn't sleep. For 3 weeks now, she had been working in Ward 7, watching people die from the Gray Death. But something was bothering her, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Her patients were lasting longer than they should die at first. She thought it was just her imagination. When you're tired and stressed, your mind can play tricks on you. But Lisa was a scientist before she became a nurse, and scientists don't ignore patterns. So she started keeping notes. Patient in bed 12 lived for 78 hours instead of 72. Patient in bed 15 made it to 80 hours. It wasn't much, but in a disease that killed everyone in exactly 3 days. Even 6 extra hours was strange. Lisa began timing everything. She wrote down when patients arrived, when symptoms got worse, and when they passed away. She did this secretly, keeping her notes hidden from the other staff. She didn't want anyone to think she was going crazy. After 2 weeks of careful keeping, the truth was undeniable. Patients in Ward 7 were living longer than patients anywhere else in the hospital. Not by much, but consistently, always a few extra hours, sometimes even a day. But why? What was different about Ward 7? Lisa looked around her ward. The beds were the same as everywhere else. The medicine was the same. The air system was connected to the rest of the hospital. The only difference she could think of was herself. She spent more time with her patients than most nurses did. She held their hands, talked to them, brought them water personally instead of using the automated systems. Could it really be that simple? Could human contact somehow slow down the Gray Death? Lisa decided to test her theory. She started spending even more time with her patients. She would sit by their beds for hours, holding their hands and talking softly. She brought them water and food personally. She even started giving them small sips of water from her own cup. When the regular hospital water seemed to upset their stomachs, the results were amazing. Patients who received this extra personal care lived even longer. Some made it to 90 hours, a few reached for full days. One patient, an elderly man from the mining colonies, lived for almost 5 days before the Gray Death finally claimed him. But Lisa was exhausted. Giving this much personal attention to every patient was wearing her down. She was losing weight, barely sleeping, and her hands shook from tiredness. Still, she couldn't stop. These extra hours meant everything to the families. More time to say goodbye, more time to share final words of love. One night, while sitting with a young woman who was fighting the disease, Lisa felt dizzy. Her mouth was dry, and she was thirstier than she had ever been in her life. Without thinking, she took a sip of water from the cup she had been sharing with her patients. The water tasted different, slightly sweet, with a strange metallic flavor. Lisa paused. She was a biochemist. She knew that stress and extreme tiredness could change the chemistry of human saliva. Could it be possible that her own body was producing something that helped fight the Gray Death? The idea seemed crazy, but Lisa had seen too many impossible things lately to dismiss anything. She decided to test herself. Using equipment from the hospital lab, she analyzed her own saliva. What she found made her hands shake with excitement. Her saliva contained unusual enzymes that she had never seen before. These weren't normal human proteins. They were something new, something her body had started making recently. When she compared her saliva from before the Gray Death outbreak to samples from now, the difference was clear. Her body was adapting, creating new biological tools to fight an alien threat. Lisa ran more tests. She discovered that these enzymes could actually slow down the cellular breakdown that the Gray Death caused. They couldn't cure the disease, but they could buy time, precious time. But there was something else. The enzymes were strongest when Lisa was under emotional stress. When she was deeply focused on helping someone else, her body seemed to produce more of them when she was surrounded by suffering and was desperately trying to help. It was as if human compassion itself was triggering this biological response. Lisa tried to tell Dr. Rodriguez about her discovery, but the busy doctor barely had time to listen. Elena was dealing with thousands of dying patients and pressure from colonial authorities. The idea that a nurse's saliva could help fight an alien plague sounded ridiculous. Lisa, you're exhausted, Elena said gently. These enzymes you're talking about, they're probably just normal stress responses. The human body produces all kinds of chemicals when we're tired and scared. It doesn't mean they can fight off alien diseases. But Lisa knew what she had seen. Her patients were living longer. The tests didn't lie. Her body was producing something that helped fight the Gray Death. Desperate to prove her point, Lisa began secretly adding small amounts of her saliva to her patients' water. She told them it was a new experimental treatment, which wasn't really a lie. She just didn't tell them where the treatment came from. The results were even better than she hoped. Patients who received her enzyme-enhanced water lived significantly longer. Some made it to 6 days. A few reached a full week. One remarkable patient, a middle-aged teacher from Mars Colony, lived for 10 days before finally succumbing to the disease. Word began to spread quietly through the hospital. Families started requesting that their loved ones be moved to Ward 7. Other nurses noticed that Lisa's patients seemed to be doing better, though they couldn't figure out why. Lisa was scared to tell anyone the truth. Who would believe that human saliva could fight off an alien plague? Who would accept treatment that came from another person's mouth? The whole thing sounded disgusting and impossible. But as the death toll continued to climb across human space, Lisa realized she couldn't keep the secret much longer. Millions of people were dying. If her discovery could save even some of them, she had a responsibility to share it. The question was, how do you tell the world that the cure for humanity's deadliest enemy might be hiding in the mouths of the people trying to save them? How do you convince desperate families to trust in something so strange and unexpected? Lisa looked at her latest test results. Her enzymes were getting stronger every day, as if her body was learning to fight the Gray Death more effectively. She wasn't the only one either. She had started testing other nurses who worked closely with patients, and some of them showed similar enzyme production. Could it be that humanity was evolving in real time, developing biological weapons against an alien threat? Could the very thing that made humans special, their ability to care for each other, be the key to their survival? Time was running out, and Lisa had to make a choice. Keep her discovery secret and watch millions die, or risk everything to share a truth that no one would want to believe. Lisa knew she couldn't keep the secret anymore. Every day, hundreds more people died across the colonies while she sat on a discovery that could help them. But how do you tell people that salvation comes from something as simple as human saliva? She decided to start small. There was another nurse named Maya Chen who worked in Ward 5. Maya had been a friend for years, someone Lisa trusted completely. If anyone would listen without thinking she had lost her mind, it would be Maya. Lisa found Maya during a break between shifts. They sat in the empty cafeteria, surrounded by the quiet hum of the space station. Maya, I need to tell you something that's going to sound completely crazy, Lisa began. Maya looked at her tired friend. Lisa had lost weight over the past month. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, and her hands never stopped shaking. What's wrong? You look terrible. Lisa took a deep breath and told Maya everything. The longer survival times in Ward 7, the test on her saliva, the enzymes her body was producing, the secret treatments she had been giving her patients. Maya listened without interrupting. When Lisa finished, there was a long silence. You're right, Maya said finally. That does sound completely crazy. Lisa's heart sank. If Maya didn't believe her, no one would. But Maya continued, I've noticed something strange in my own ward too. Lisa looked up, hope flickering in her tired eyes. Maya explained that her patients also seemed to be lasting longer than expected. She had been giving them extra personal care, spending hours talking with them, bringing them water and food by hand instead of using the automated systems. I thought it was just coincidence, Maya said. But maybe it's not. The two nurses decided to test Maya's saliva, using the same equipment Lisa had used on herself. They analyzed Maya's enzymes. The results were amazing. Maya's body was producing the same unusual proteins that Lisa was. Not as many, but definitely the same type. How is this possible? Maya whispered, staring at the test results. Lisa had been thinking about this question for days. I think our bodies are adapting. The Gray Death is designed to kill humans. But humans are good at surviving impossible things. Maybe our immune systems are learning to fight back. Over the next few days, Maya began secretly adding her saliva to her patients' water, just like Lisa was doing. The results were the same. Patients lived longer. Families got more time to say goodbye. Hope began to grow in Ward 5, just like it had in Ward 7. But Lisa and Maya weren't the only ones who had noticed patterns. Dr. Rodriguez had finally started paying attention to the survival statistics from different wards when she saw that wards 5 and 7 consistently had longer patient survival times. She called both nurses to her office. I need to know what you two are doing differently, Elena said, looking exhausted and desperate. Your patients are outliving everyone else's. Are you using some kind of unauthorized treatment? Lisa and Maya looked at each other. This was the moment they had been dreading and hoping for at the same time. Lisa told Elena everything. The doctor listened with growing amazement and disbelief. When Lisa finished explaining about the enzymes and the secret treatments, Elena was quiet for a long time. Show me the test results, Elena said finally. Lisa handed over all her data, blood work, enzyme analysis, patient survival charts, everything. Elena studied the papers for almost an hour while the two nurses waited nervously. This is impossible, Elena said at last. But the data doesn't lie. Your patients are living longer. And these enzyme readings are unlike anything I've ever seen. Elena made a decision that would change everything. She authorized Lisa and Maya to test other nurses who worked closely with patients. They started with women who spent the most time providing personal care, who held hands with the dying and brought comfort in the final hours. The results were incredible. Out of 20 nurses tested, 12 showed signs of producing the unusual enzymes. All 12 worked in direct patient care. All 12 had been showing extra compassion and spending extra time with the dying. But there was something else. The nurses who produced the strongest enzymes were those who had been most emotionally affected by the deaths around them. Women who cried for their patients. Women who stayed up at night worrying about families they couldn't save. Women who poured their hearts into caring for others, even when they knew it wouldn't change the outcome. It was as if human compassion itself was triggering this biological response. The more deeply these women cared, the more their bodies adapted to help. Elena decided to expand the testing. She quietly reached out to other hospitals across the station and nearby colonies. She didn't tell them exactly what she was looking for, only that she wanted to study nurses who worked in direct patient care. The results from other hospitals were the same. Nurses who spent the most time with Gray Death patients, who provided the most personal care, were developing the same enzymatic adaptation. Their saliva contained proteins that could slow down the cellular breakdown caused by the alien plague. But Elena also discovered something troubling. The colonial authorities were becoming suspicious. They had noticed that certain wards in certain hospitals were reporting longer survival times. They wanted to know why. Government investigators started showing up at hospitals, asking questions about treatment protocols and staff assignments. They interviewed patients' families, looking for any sign of unauthorized medical experiments. Elena realized they were in danger. If the authorities discovered what the nurses were doing, they would probably be arrested for practicing medicine. Without proper authorization, the treatment would be banned, and thousands more people would die while bureaucrats argued about regulations and safety protocols. Lisa, Maya, and the other nurses made a difficult decision. They would continue their treatments in secret, but they needed to be more careful. They developed a system of coded messages and hidden supply routes. They identified safe houses where infected people could receive treatment away from government oversight. Word began to spread through underground networks. Families whispered to each other about certain nurses who could help their loved ones live longer. People started requesting transfers to specific wards, though they couldn't say why. The secret network of healing women grew larger every day. They called themselves the Wellspring, after the ancient idea of healing waters that could cure any disease. But as their network expanded, so did the risks. Government agents were getting closer to discovering the truth. Some nurses had already been questioned about unusual patient survival rates. Elena herself was being watched by colonial security forces. Lisa knew that their secret couldn't stay hidden much longer. Every day, more people joined the Wellspring, and every day, the chances of discovery grew higher. But every day they stayed hidden was another day when hundreds of people lived longer than they should have, another day when families got more time with their loved ones. The question was, how long could they keep this up before someone discovered what they were really doing? And when that day came, would humanity accept this strange gift? Or would fear and bureaucracy destroy their only hope for survival? Time was running out, and the Wellspring was about to face its greatest test. The secret was getting harder to keep every day. More families whispered about the miracle nurses who could help their loved ones live longer. Every day, more people found ways to reach the Wellspring, and every day, the colonial authorities got closer to discovering what was really happening. Lisa barely slept anymore. Her days were spent treating patients with her special enzymes, and her nights were spent coordinating with other nurses across different colonies. The network had grown beyond anything she had imagined. There were now over 100 nurses across 15 different space stations and colony worlds, all working in secret to save lives, but the work was taking its toll. Lisa had lost 20 pounds in 2 months. Her body was constantly producing the healing enzymes, and the process was exhausting. Some nights, she was so drained that she could barely stand. Yet every morning, she got up and went back to work because people were counting on her. Maya had become her closest partner in running the underground network. Together, they had developed a system that could move infected people to safe treatment locations without attracting government attention. They used maintenance tunnels, cargo shipments, and even disguised medical transports to get patients to their hidden treatment centers. The most amazing part was how ordinary people had started helping. When word spread quietly about what the Wellspring was doing, regular citizens began volunteering. Shop owners provided safe houses. Transport pilots offered free rides to families seeking treatment. Engineers helped build hidden medical facilities in abandoned sections of space stations. An elderly mechanic named Tony Reeves had converted his entire repair shop into a secret treatment center. My granddaughter died from the Gray Death last month, he told Lisa when he offered his help. If you ladies can save other people's grandchildren, then I'll do whatever it takes to help you. Stories like Tony's were common. People who had lost family members to the plague were the most eager to help the Wellspring. They understood that conventional medicine had failed, and they were willing to try anything that might save others. from the pain they had experienced, but success brought danger. Government investigators were no longer just asking questions. They were conducting raids on hospitals, searching for evidence of unauthorized treatments. Several nurses had been arrested for conducting illegal medical experiments. The charges were serious enough to result in life imprisonment. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez found herself walking a tightrope. As head of Luna Station's hospital, she was supposed to cooperate with government investigations. But she had seen the results of the Wellspring treatments with her own eyes. She knew that Lisa and the other nurses were saving lives, not endangering them. Elena made a choice that would change her life forever. Instead of turning in the nurses, she began actively helping them. She used her authority to cover up unusual patient transfers. She falsified medical records to hide longer survival times. She even helped establish new safe houses in unused sections of the hospital. If they want to arrest me for saving lives, then let them, Elena told Lisa during one of their secret meetings. I became a doctor to help people, not to follow stupid rules that let them die. The resistance grew stronger every day. Pilots began smuggling infected passengers between colonies for free. Communication officers sent coded messages between different Wellspring cells without reporting them to authorities. Even some government workers started quietly helping, providing warnings when raids were planned. But the colonial authorities were getting desperate too. The Gray Death was spreading faster than ever, and traditional medicine was still completely useless. Billions of people had died across human space, and entire colonies were becoming ghost towns. The pressure to find a solution was enormous. Government scientists had been studying the unusual survival rates in certain hospital wards. They knew something was different, but they couldn't figure out what. Some suspected that nurses were using unauthorized drugs. Others thought there might be environmental factors that helped certain patients. What they didn't suspect was that the cure was literally coming from the mouths of the women who cared for the sick. Lisa realized that the Wellspring needed to be even more careful. Government agents were getting closer to the truth, and if they discovered the real source of the treatments, they might try to arrest all the nurses and lock them away for study. Like laboratory animals. She organized the network into smaller, independent cells. Each group of nurses only knew about their own operations, not the bigger picture. This way, if one group was discovered, they couldn't reveal information about the others. The nurses also developed new ways to hide their treatments. Instead of adding enzymes directly to water, they began using hidden delivery systems, special cups of false bottoms, medical equipment that had been modified to include enzyme dispensers, even clothing that had been treated with the healing compounds. But just when everything seemed to be working, disaster struck. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez was arrested while trying to document the success of Wellspring treatments. She had been secretly recording patient recovery data to prove that the enzyme therapy was working. Government agents found her hidden files during a surprise raid on her office. The charges against Elena were serious: conspiracy to conduct illegal medical experiments, endangering public safety, interfering with government health policy. If convicted, she could spend the rest of her life in prison. News of Elena's arrest spread quickly through the Wellspring network. Many nurses panicked. If Elena could be arrested, none of them were safe. Some wanted to stop the treatments immediately and go into hiding. But Lisa refused to give up. Elena had been captured while trying to prove that their treatments worked. The least they could do was continue her work. They arrested her because she was trying to save lives. Lisa told the other nurses during an emergency meeting, "If we stop now, then Elena's sacrifice means nothing. All those people she helped save, all those families she gave extra time with their loved ones, it all becomes worthless." The other nurses agreed. They would continue their work, but they needed to be smarter about it. They developed new security protocols. They created backup communication systems. They even began training ordinary volunteers to provide basic enzyme treatments so the work could continue even if all the nurses were arrested. The resistance had become something bigger than anyone had imagined. It wasn't just nurses anymore. It was teachers, mechanics, shopkeepers, pilots, and parents. It was anyone who refused to accept that humanity should just lie down and die from an alien plague. But time was running out. The government was preparing something big, and Lisa could feel it coming. They were going to make a move that would either destroy the wellspring forever or force it to come out of the shadows and fight openly. The question was, would humanity stand with the women who had found a way to fight death itself, or would fear and politics destroy their only hope for survival? Lisa stood in the abandoned communications center on Luna Station, her hands shaking as she prepared to make the most important broadcast in human history. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez was still in prison, facing life imprisonment for trying to save lives. Government forces were closing in on the Wellspring Network within hours. They would probably arrest every nurse involved in the secret treatments. But Lisa had made a decision. Instead of hiding and watching their movement get destroyed piece by piece, she was going to tell everyone the truth. All of it. Every human being in every colony across the galaxy would learn about the enzyme treatments, about the wellspring, and about how their own bodies might hold the key to survival. Maya stood beside her, along with 12 other nurses from different colonies who had risked everything to be here. They had traveled through dangerous space, dodging government patrols and using fake identification papers. They knew this broadcast would probably end with all of them in prison. But they also knew it was humanity's last chance. Are you sure about this? Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Once we do this, there's no going back. They'll hunt us down everywhere. Lisa looked at her friend. Both women had lost so much weight that their uniforms hung loose on their bodies. Their eyes were tired from months of secret work and constant fear. But there was something else in their eyes too. Hope, determination, the absolute refusal to give up. People are dying while we hide in the shadows, Lisa said. If we don't tell them the truth now, millions more will die in the next few months. I'd rather spend my life in prison knowing I tried to save humanity than spend it free knowing I let everyone die in silence. The nurses activated the emergency broadcast system. This was supposed to be used only for colony-wide disasters. But Lisa figured that human extinction counted as a disaster within minutes. Her signal would reach every human settlement in known space. Lisa took a deep breath and began to speak. My name is Lisa Park. I'm a nurse on Luna Station, and I have something to tell you that will sound impossible. For the past 4 months, my colleagues and I have been secretly treating gray death patients with a cure that your own government has tried to hide from you across human space. People stopped what they were doing and listened. In homes, workplaces, schools, and hospitals, millions of humans heard Lisa's voice coming through their communication systems. The cure isn't some fancy medicine or alien technology, Lisa continued. It's something that certain human beings can produce in their own bodies. Women who care deeply for the sick and dying have developed the ability to create healing compounds that can slow down and even stop the gray death. Lisa explained everything. How she had first noticed longer survival times in her ward. How she had discovered the enzymes in her saliva. How the Wellspring Network had formed and saved thousands of lives in secret. How the government had arrested doctors and nurses for trying to help people right now. There are over 300 women across our colonies who can produce these healing compounds. Lisa said they've been working in secret, risking their freedom and their lives to save as many people as possible. But they can't do it alone anymore. They need your help. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Communication channels across human space lit up with messages of support. Families who had lost loved ones to the gray death demanded to know why the government had hidden this treatment. People whose relatives were currently dying begged to know where they could find Wellspring nurses. But more importantly, something else began to happen. Other women started coming forward, saying they had noticed similar things in their own communities. A teacher on Mars colony said her students seemed healthier when she spent more time with them personally. A mother on the mining stations reported that her sick children recovered faster when she stayed close to them. The truth was spreading, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. Lisa's discovery wasn't unique to her. Hundreds, Maybe thousands of human women had developed similar abilities. Their bodies had been adapting to fight the Gray Death, but they hadn't realized what was happening. Within hours of Lisa's broadcast, underground treatment centers were operating openly across human space. People stopped hiding and started demanding access to the enzyme treatments. Families traveled between colonies specifically to find wellspring nurses who could help their loved ones. The colonial authorities tried to stop the movement, but it was too late. When government forces arrived to arrest nurses, they found crowds of ordinary citizens protecting them. When they tried to shut down treatment centers, entire communities stood in their way. On Earth itself, massive protests erupted in every major city. People held signs reading, "Let our healers work," and "Stop arresting our saviors." The protests were peaceful but determined. Millions of humans demanded that their government stop interfering with the only treatment that actually worked against the Gray Death. The most amazing discovery came when scientists finally had permission to study the enzyme treatments openly. They found that the healing compounds weren't just stopping the Gray Death. They were actually helping humans develop immunity to other alien diseases as well. Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez was released from prison after just 3 days, when public pressure became too strong for the government to ignore. Her first act as a free woman was to help establish the first official wellspring treatment center. What Lisa and these brave women discovered, Eleanor announced at a press conference, is that humanity doesn't just survive threats to our existence. We adapt to them. We turn our greatest weaknesses into our greatest strengths. But the story didn't end there. As word spread beyond human space, something unexpected happened. Alien species that had been watching humanity struggle against the Gray Death began reaching out. They had diseases of their own, plagues that had killed billions of their people over the centuries. "We heard about your healing women," said Ambassador Zara from the Centauri Alliance during humanity's first intergalactic medical conference. "We have sickness that has killed our children for 1,000 years. Could your healers help us?" 2. Lisa found herself standing before representatives from dozens of alien civilizations, all asking the same question. Could human compassion and the biological adaptations it triggered help save other species as well? The answer, it turned out, was yes. Human healing compounds worked on alien diseases too, though not in the same way they worked on the Gray Death. What the compounds really did was boost the natural healing abilities that every living creature possessed. They didn't cure diseases directly. Instead, they helped bodies remember how to fight for themselves. Within a year, Lisa went from being a hunted criminal to being humanity's first ambassador to the Galactic Health Council. The woman who had started by secretly adding her saliva to patients' water was now working with the greatest medical minds in the galaxy. The thing about humans, Lisa told the assembled alien delegates during her first major speech, is that we don't just survive impossible situations. We find ways to turn those situations into opportunities to help others. The Gray Death, which had been designed to wipe out humanity, had instead triggered the greatest evolutionary leap in human history. Not only had humans developed the ability to heal themselves, they had become healers for the entire galaxy. And it all started with a tired nurse who refused to accept that death was inevitable, who believed that caring for others could literally change the world. Lisa Park had saved not just humanity, but had opened the door to a future where no species would have to face extinction alone. The healing touch of human compassion had become the most powerful medicine in the known universe.